report, and good to see everybody. So for this very special occasion, for over 31 years, what we've experienced is we've had clients whose families grieved really well, moved on with their lives, cherished great memories of their loved ones. And then we've experienced the opposite, where we've had families who struggled to grieve because they had to, they were overwhelmed with the challenge of putting their loved ones' affairs in orders, from unlocking cell phones to knowing passwords to things going to probate because no wills were in place. So, and over the years, I've been asked many times, what should I do with my rental properties? I know many of you in here are rental property owners and properties are paid for. What do I do with them to safeguard them for my children, et cetera, et cetera. So therefore, I wanted to put this together to give you an opportunity to garner ideas and strategies to either put your affairs in order so you can have peace of mind, and for those you leave behind, as well as update if you have something in place and it hasn't been updated, to update it so that things are current and you continue to have peace of mind for yourself and for those that you leave behind. So today we're going to be having our attorney, Jared Smith, owner of Smith, Howell and Associates, who's right here in house with us, speak to us. And during his Q&A, feel free to ask questions. Feel free to get up and get food and wine, partake, enjoy, and make sure you get his business card and everything before you leave. So I pray that today will be very informative for you, but not only that, I hope that it plants seeds that will sprout into action so that once again, you have peace of mind and for those that you leave behind. Thank you.
It's overwhelming because you start thinking about like, well, man, how do I hold my property if I own real estate? Do I need a will? What is this living will or advanced directive that I hear about? What about powers of attorney? Like, what about cousin Joe who's going to fight over my kids? And people get overwhelmed with all these issues. And so the first thing I tell you is that if you pass away in South Carolina, or in many states without a will, you die what's called intestate. Just literally means that you're without a will. And if you own any real estate or a vehicle or a trailer or anything that's titled, whoever's left is going to have to go to court and usually spend thousands of dollars to get an attorney, or they're going to have to at least muddle their way through the probate system trying to get the title transferred over to whoever is the living person. And that's the same if you own your no.
All right, so then if you have a trust within a will and you put the, I guess, the deed to your home in that, does the person who owns the house have
you would. And so here's the reason why. You're not going to deed anything in a will. So you can, that's not the right way to phrase that. You're not going to change the deed right now, like by deeding something during your lifetime to do something in your will. In your will, it just states what's going to happen at your death. So there's no actions right now except having the will off to the side. Your will is just going to state what happens to it after you go.
So did the gentleman who sold the house after his wife died, did he have to pay capital gains tax on his house?
No. Generally speaking, no. And that's more of an Alicia or a CPA question, but I can tell you that if you live in a house as a primary residence, 2 of the last 5 years, then there's no capital gains, you're exempted. Generally speaking, your home that you live in is exempted from capital gains.
Is that the same?
Yeah, up to $250 for an individual and $500 for a couple as your primary residence within 5 years.
Yep. All right. The kid from the joint marriage, so it was like the his, hers, and the theirs going on, and they had reciprocal wills that another attorney had done, and a reciprocal will says everything goes to my spouse, and if I die, then it's going to go to my kids equally. But they hadn't adopted those kids from the previous marriages. They all lived together in one big happy family and had for many years. But what happened is that
also hindered, because I've seen it happen where people have tried to sell their home. Okay, they added a son or a daughter, and then that person didn't want to sign off.
Oh yeah, that's definitely a problem. I mean, if you add somebody as a remainder, a life estate is less commonly used than joint tenancy. So normally, if you add somebody to as an owner, whether they're a remainder interest or whether they're a current life estate interest, everybody that's listed on the deed primarily when it went into their name, they have to sign when you sell it.
Property and has the right of survivorship, like between spouses. When both of you pass, if you don't add somebody to it, what happens?
Well, it's a good question. So either the secondary person needs to add somebody, especially that ought to be a trigger that when the first person passes, that you own it now outright. That should trigger the idea that you need to go talk to an estate planning attorney again. Either you need to add another joint tenant, or you need to have a something that deals with it, how it's going to go in your will. Or you could do it as a life estate and then go ahead and put remainders on it, like your children as remainders. But you should definitely come back when the first person passes and you're again the last person at that point. I think my recommendation is to go in and add somebody, otherwise you're going to be back in probate again.
Can you add it while both of you are alive, that if something should happen to both of us?
Yes, you certainly can. And that's usually where the will comes in. You can add however much you want into real estate. The one danger of adding somebody in real estate, and I didn't say this, is if you have somebody that is a kid and they have bad credit card debt or they're just not responsible. If there's a judgment and they are added as remainders on your deed, the judgments can attach to your property immediately. The moment they become remainders named on the deed that's filed at a courthouse, they become an owner. Now, they're only an owner of a remainder interest, but that's an interest. It's called an equitable interest. It may not have a dollar sign on it, but they own title to property. And if they're not responsible, if they have judgments, a credit card gets written off. 90% of the time, they just let it go. They write it off as bad debt. They put it on somebody's credit report, and that's not a judgment. But if you had, let's say, a $10,000 credit card bill and it was written off as bad debt, most of the time they go down and get a little document that's a one-page document that's a judgment. And if it hits them, it attaches to your property. And so I always tell people, you never want to add somebody to title or real estate that has judgments in their name, tax liens in their name, or has that problem. That's when you start talking about wills and putting things in a trust. Yeah. Just make sure that you guys get a good deal and that somebody deals with you fairly. My law firm is not about, I would say that we're not about making money. We're running a business, so there's a business aspect to it, but we're more about building relationships with people over the long term, because I would rather see you at the Publix and shake hands, or see you at the Costco and the Sam's Club with my kids in tow and my YMCA coach shirt on. You're gonna see me, so I'm just a regular guy that lives in Lake Carolina with 3 kids. And so I'd rather have the relationship with people than making $1 off of them, because the relationship is fun.
All right, if you, let me get my thoughts together. Roseanne,
Sorry,
what was it with the second thing? Oh. You end up having the house and you close on it, you pay off your mortgage, the bank sends you a letter saying that your mortgage now is clear and here's a notarized statement to that effect.
Yes, sir.
And you have your closing statement from your house, but you don't really have a deed, correct?
Oh, you got the deed. You've got it. You just may not have it in your hand. It's at the courthouse.
Okay, it's at the courthouse. So
And you can pull it, and I can pull it right now in any county in the state for you.
okay, so it's just we don't have it in our position. It's possession.
Yeah,
It's at
what
the courthouse.
county are you in?
Richland.
You call me on Monday morning and I'll pull a copy of your deed from the courthouse and I'll email it to you.
Okay.
And no charge.
Well, great.
It's easy. Kershaw County sends me down there, nothing's online. So.